Hello, this is Ken, your podcast preacher, and I want to welcome you back to Deep Waters. This podcast is brought to you by Applied Strengths Ministry, where we believe working together in our strengths is the effect of working out the will and calling of God in our lives. The title of this message is Drinking, Gambling, and Sexing Responsibly. So today is October 31st, 2022. I wrote this message January 24th, 2022. It's the last of 90 messages. It's my first phase. So I'm almost done. Why I waited so long to get to this one? Not really sure. I tried to go in the order that I think God would have gone, but I'm not sure that even matters, as long as I get all the messages out there. So today, January 24, 2022, I expected to continue the work on my very long message titled Church Purpose. I suspect I will have to turn it into a mini-series so that you don't have to spend an entire week in your seats. By the way, I did finish that message, and it was 28 sections. You can listen to it on my podcast or YouTube channel. But as typical of some weekends, I get the idea for another message. So in believing that it is God, I work on it and get to the other one later. Anyways, this happens about 1 in every 5 messages. And why, you might be asking, am I sharing this with you? I think that it is important to be where God is at the time. And sometimes He shifts course on you to see if you will follow or do your own thing. Rerouting. Have a look-see. John 17:24. Father, I desire that they also whom you gave me may be with me where I am, that they may behold my glory which you have given me. For you have loved me before the foundations of the world. Now, before I continue reading these scriptures, here's some questions you can ask yourself. Is Jesus in the church that you're at right now? He prayed that you would be where He is. That is for you. And in Corinthians, it says that it's to God's good pleasure to place you in a body. Are you in the right church? Are you activated? Are you being made a disciple? Are these elements missing from your life because you're not at the right address? The right church address, that is. You can tell a lot by a person in the fruit that they bear, based on whether or not they're asking Jesus to follow them or if they're following Jesus. There is a difference. Anyways, John 14:20. At that day you will know that I am in my Father, and you in me, and I in you. John 15:2. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, He takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, He prunes, that it may bear more fruit. If you're not bearing any fruit in the Lord, you will be taken away. It says so right there. He takes away. That is, the Father will take it away. You will not be plugged into Jesus. That's not a good thing. You can't take a blind works resume to heaven and expect good results. Sorry, I'm not trying to be hard. I just don't want you to show up empty-handed. So if you wonder why perhaps you are not reproducing what Jesus reproduced, perhaps it is because you do not fully understand just how connected you are to Him. If He is doing something, then you should be doing the same thing. You are one with the One. How can it be any other way? So now before I go on, I am sure I need to address the elephant in the room. The sexting word in this message title. Well, in this message, it's not what you might be thinking, although I do not really know what you are thinking, but simply rattling my knees forward in the hopes that the quiet clicks will manifest into the podcast preacher passion for this message. I know that many people who go gold mining seek for treasure, walk right over gold nuggets, passing them by. And you know why? Because they kept walking. So I say stop and here scan the enemy battlefield so that you can be more strategic in your ministry than you already are. And I am assuming you are. So I was watching football and began to notice how many drinking commercials there were. This is probably not a surprise to you. But what caught my attention was another unrelated but related commercial, which opened up with a tagline indicating that the man walking down one of the infamous tunnels that the team travels down to enter onto the field, a retired football coach. He began drawing on a whiteboard and made 3 points about gambling. One of the points stood out. He stated something to the effect, "Gamble responsibly." Now, this isn't the first time a commercial has piqued my interest and made me think perhaps I'm nothing more than a dumb elephant as I sat there eating another handful of my spicy peanuts. I wondered if that is why they said such and such in that commercial, because they think that I'm a dumb elephant. Now, because of the way my mind works, I began to flash through my mental commercial Rolodex and found that other industries also say the same thing. Sometimes not verbatim, but they do throw the dog a bone, so that you are not focusing on the killer product, but you are focusing on the fruit of the sleight of hand. Guzzle-mongering responsibility. Drink responsibly, right? So now before the hordes come rushing out as if we were in yet another of the Lord of the Rings sequel, I do not think this commercialism or messaging is totally bad. After all, we need to be reminded of how stupid we can be, right? And these companies make good parents, right? Otherwise they wouldn't have our kids planted in front of the TVs for so long. But what we should be asking ourselves is if these commercials actually work. And no, they don't make good parents. Well, if you ask the industry, they might say that the fact that the commercial exists is proof enough that it works, and it shows that we really care. And you know that they can throw out a sea of statistics that prove they make good parents. In my off-center mind, I think, context coming, that it would be like a gang of bad guys shooting innocent people, taking all of their stuff, but then burying them so as to be proper. Would the police let them off the hook because in the end they did something proper? Nope. If they didn't kill people for stuff, that would be the most properest thing they could do. But like if the drug dealers would begin to open up clinics for the addicted and run commercials about using their products responsibly, we might see the irony. Did we not take a step in the right direction by giving users needles? So that they don't die of AIDS? Now the fact that they might die of an overdose, well, that's irrelevant. Can't you see we tried? How about the gangs holding gun safety courses to reduce the unintentional murder rate? What if a prostitution ring opened up a psych hospital and clinics to deal with the trauma of the industry? Perhaps an abortion clinic to handle any accidents? Why, we may just think it all good and very well, right? In many cases, we actually do. We accept the sleight of hand because we should have the freedom to make our own decisions about life, right? The problem is a duality. On the one hand, the problem caused by the irresponsible use of the product being sold costs the tribe more than the profits they make. Okay, see here for a minute. This is a well-known strategy often ignored, though it is in plain sight. It happens in your face, and like a ghost, if it's not in my neighborhood, let Casper be. So I sell a product known to incite the body to addictive behavior, but blame the user for a lack of self-control, something we all lack in one or more areas of our lives, and then cite a law in my defense, or the Declaration of Independence, or capitalism, or whatever rehearsed line that has 1,000 times run through my thoughts, so that I can be personally justified. So I make my profits, which increase because now I have a captive audience that openly markets my product to other irresponsible like-minded peeps. So for the sake of arguments and the fact that I don't want to pull out the fact-checker statistics, let's say I now make $15 million a year. But so now here comes the side effects of the use of my product. And oh, but wait, when I consume too much of the product, I feel like eating buildings somewhat imitating Godzilla. But not so fast. You see, I need to get away after eating those buildings, so I will get behind the wheel of a car and speed away. So now I'm speeding and my car is speeding. All of these things and so much more happen because I consumed your product, or my product. We could look at some real examples and see. I believe that alcohol, something I have indulged in different seasons of my building eating life, creates societal problems that cost far and away, over and above, exceedingly, enormously, and incrementally more than the profits that the making, shipping, and selling generate. Now, I suspect if the companies that sold the product were also responsible for its effect on society, well, I don't know that that could ever happen. So to reiterate, I'm not attacking anyone who sells the stuff, not attacking any of the industry that makes this stuff, not attacking anyone who consumes this stuff, responsibly or irresponsibly. Nope, and you know why? Because even if we stopped making it, even if it never existed, we would still have planetarian problems galore, and all the peeps in the alcohol business breathe a sigh of relief. You see, the root isn't the addiction or the stuff that leads to the addiction, it's sin and the absence of God in our lives. So then there's a law. The legal seagulls believe that he is more righteous than the illegal beagle. Yet the alcohol has the same effect on its drinker. Someone forgot to tell the alcohol to behave differently when coming from a legal position. Sounds funny and sarcastic because it is no more ridiculous than a cigarette company that sells cigarettes and also runs commercials about how bad their product is. They must believe you don't care. Are you the elephant too? It wouldn't surprise me if the cigarette company also owned the hospitals that specialize in dealing with smokers and lung cancer. But golly, we shouldn't waste an opportunity here. After all, our product is killing them. So why not also treat them on the back end of the years using our product as well? Besides, who knows the effects of our products better than us? Funny money. One of the things that concerns me about humans is the principle of money funneling. Money funneling looks like this, in my mind. So I make 15 million, but to solve the inevitable problems of the sale and consumption of my product, it will cost a large mass of people who pay taxes 2, 3, 4 times over and above my profit to deal with. Not fix, because there is no fix, but to deal with the societal woes that come with the existence of that product. It's best expressed this way. 70% of the wealth that exists in America is in the hands of just 10%. Now, for many of these peeps, it is earned and their labor is fairly compensated. But it should be noted that not all wealth is shown or statistically tracked. The porn industry is just one small example. But the wealth that is tracked shows a bleak enough picture, doesn't it? We know that the world does not work in the way that it is marketed. The hardest, most intelligent, upright, and walks in integrity do not necessarily end up compensated for their contribution to the system. How often do we read, see, hear, and listen to those who have a lot of money, only to find that we hoped our kids don't end up like them? Point, Ken, the point. So I guess if the world really believed we could really all live in a utopian garden, where no human issues could permeate, we would actually pull the weeds out by the root. Weed killers exist because we don't implement the weed root pull principle often enough. And it is far and away easier to spray the top of the plant than to wrestle with this lifeline. So what I'm trying to say here is that the wealthy own the answers if money is indeed the answer. The top 10% could eliminate poverty. However, like a dog that returns to its own vomit, we would eventually digress. And why? Because money is indeed not the solution or the problem. Again, not an attack on the wealthy. Live it up. If everyone had the same amount of money, including governmental systems and employees, we would still have a planetarium problems galore. Besides, I know how hard I work, and I have seen some of the laziest mammals on the planet, and would not in my wildest dreams want them to be earning the same salary as I do. In fact, my perfect world, and it's not perfect, would be that people who would be compensated for what they do, how much they do of it, and the excellence in which they do it. Laziness would get the salary commensurate to a lazy effort, period. But again, this would not solve the world problems, because as we have seen throughout history, people oftentimes want other people's stuff without doing what they did to get it. Example, we have seen how some use justice to commit robbery on their neighbors by breaking windows and pilfering what does not belong to them, and all in the name of justice and laziness. So if you're wondering if I'm up to something, yes, grab a beer and hang out. Now, this business model can be used in any industry. If you're a statistician, the world is your oyster. Look, compare the statistics of the benefits of the existence of a product and the statistics of the curse of the product. The government should have all the data. Imagine if we had this information and made decisions as to whether or not we should sell a product based on both the good and the evil effects. Now, this would solve many of our woes, right? Nope, we would still have planetarium problems galore. You see, this type of thinking comes from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Some people call evil good, and some people call good evil. Again, but this is not a rant against any of what has been mentioned so far, although it could be. But I assure you that if everyone straightened up, none of it would change a thing. I mean, come on, somebody, how long does it take to get our planetary stuff together? Are you hoping that everything will line up and one day all of humanity will roll out of bed and say, you know, today I feel like serving others, or today I'm going to give 10% of my wealth away to the first 100 people I see, and not introduce myself? We can't. They can't. Nope, we won't. All of the technology advancements in medicine, etc., keeping in mind things have always advanced since Adam left his footprints in the Garden of God, won't lead us to a paradisian utopia. It actually seems like as we advance, we also decline. Are we in a race to somehow tip the scales of human survival the other way? More on that later, as I still feel some of you need some more data. As long as there are humans to consume and money to be made, the industry, practices, purposes, and profit goals won't change. They may open up yet another hospital to distract you from what they peddle, but they won't change. You see, they too are addicted to stuff, including the lifestyle that money can slot a person in. Perhaps the slogan, "Be rich responsibly," should be touted wild, wild media style. Nope, people with wealth can be just as irresponsible as the carjackers of America. Besides, what better way to trick a fish but to throw a lure out in the water that looks like a smaller version of itself? I'm using these illustrations because they are real, and the entire process from beginning to end, that is, from purchasing the real estate to grow the crops to retail distribution is considered, right? Nope. I also included the negative impacts, only some, because I only have one lifetime to finish this message. So only some of the issues that are caused by alcohol are represented in this story. To look at the product as a whole, completely 360 in its entirety. It's like the gun issue, which is not the issue in my mind. Let's drive for a minute. So you have bad guys who have guns, and they shoot both bad guys and good guys, who may not have a gun handy to stop the bad guy. Take away the guns from the good guys because the bad guys will always have guns. And what have we done? No. Take a minute. Now really think about this scenario, because that is the best solution that many people believe will stop the bad guys. Our best, or at least some of them, and brightest, believe, and I don't believe they believe it being the words coming out of their mouth, that disarming the good guys will in any way, I mean in any way, stop the bad guys from being bad and finding a way to continue to be a bad guy. That is that. That is what I'm talking about. Save the world. But we can't even see our way out of some of the more simpler issues running amok. Take away the guns from the good guys and watch, see, and listen to the blind bat who is flying around in the daylight saying, "We never saw it coming." And this is why taking away the guns will not achieve the desired goals or outcomes. It seems that we cannot even chat about this issue without the good guys wanting to shoot the other guys, while of course the bad guys watch the event while holding up another liquor store. But then again, though not a rant against them, I will continue to use this message to make a truth point. I will use their bait, since they overwhelm the airwaves with the decrepit idiosyncrasies, to make a related point. Are all commercials bad? Is this even about commercials? All businesses, all organizations, all industries, all churches? Nope and yes. I thought I would throw that last one in because if we're doing our jobs as Jesus expects us to, and will some glorious day judge us for, then perhaps there would be less of this stuff going on. Perhaps all the stupid people would actually move to the moon. I got first dibs on starting a coffee franchise called Moonbucks. It's funnier than that. No, we cannot do away with all of the things that make messes, because it's people. At the very core of issues, it is people that are the problem. And this was, and is a problem that has been solved. What? Yep. We the people are an evil people from the beginning of time, and have manifested that evil against God through the vine of sin from the very first human creation. Are you now saying, Ken, that alcohol is not the issue? Well, if we didn't sin, would we actually see a need for it? It would be enjoyed rather in the context of what it is made of. Some of it isn't necessary, but to numb a person's brain from the issues because they have not been taught or shown how to deal with the issues. Freedom of speech for them, and you know who they are, and yes, it may be you, now or later, but without God to steer your boat, surely you will make your contribution to the digression of humanity. If you really want to know the point of this message, it is to take your eyes off the hooks of the industry and for you to see your deliverance from it. There is only one option, and it is not to drink the punch. Nope. It is a proven option and one that, although the forces of hell have tried to disprove and completely wipe off the face of the earth, and now have and will fail, and that option is Jesus. Now I have a message or 8 on the subject of 2. 2 seeds, 2 animals, sheep and goats, 2 fathers, God and Satan. 2 people groups, Satan's kids or God's children. 2 disciple groups, those that remain or those who don't. 2 ministry peeps, the real and the false. 2 trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. 2 philosophies, right and wrong, or righteousness and unrighteousness. Should I go on because I can? LOL. The idea of 2 in this world shows that the opposite of a good thing is usually at war with it, unless it too is good. We know not all things are good, and that in these last days it looks like good is losing the fight. Trust me when I say this, but this generation has not seen the full manifestation of just how evil man can act, especially under the influence of the devil. And like they did in the beginning when they killed Jesus, we today are killing God. We're telling him we don't want him. We're worshiping the devil and turning him into a god. I know, it's kind of stupid. And trust me, there are many Christians out there, or at least with the Christian label, doing the same thing, thinking they're doing something different. It's in the Bible. So if you need context, see this as a magnifying glass message. I want you to see the hook for what it is. Don't allow the industry to define your intelligence. Just because they say it, it doesn't mean it's true. Just because they teach it, doesn't mean it should be learned and adopted. I mean, how can you, on the one hand, sell cigarettes and alcohol in mass volumes, separating yourself from any responsibility of what happens to a neighborhood that is negatively affected by these products, while at the same time saying that we care in any manner of sentence structure? Now, if you're advertising with something like this, come and buy our drinks and our cigarettes. Eventually one or both will kill you, but we don't care. It's your responsibility to determine how much to drink and smoke, not ours. That's not the commercial that's going to run. If you suspect a conflict of interest in business practice in terms of profit versus impact, well, there may be a conflict of interest. I initially left out the insurance industries, pharma makers and distributors, alike because, well, I shouldn't. Look, I have a hard time believing that an insurance company cares at all for my well-being. Yes, they don't want me to get into an accident because it will cost them money. And they are not in the money-losing business. They are 100% in the money-making business. It's all about managing risks. So if you get into one too many accidents or get one too many tickets, bing, off the Christmas list. You can refer them back to as many of their commercials as you want, but it won't matter. They won't change their mind. And the fact that it is mandatory that you have insurance makes it even harder for me to believe they care. Giving money over a lifetime that I know I will not use does not give me peace of mind. Is the insurance companies the problem? Nope. The problem is when you get into an accident and somebody who hits you doesn't have the resources to pay for your car, you end up having to pay for it. And the person that hit your car will walk away. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be that if you hit a car, you take care of it. I think that there would be less accidents. It's just holding the right people responsible for their own behavior. But then again, isn't this what this message has been about so far? Those who are responsible are not necessarily held responsible for their behavior. So listen, I know they have to make money, but think about this for just a minute. How many people do you think they actually lose money on? If someone becomes a high risk, instead of using the resources of the others in the money bowl, they cut off the branch. In fact, in the world of insurance, making money or profit on every person is the ultimate goal. It's not to take care of you in a pinch. I recently called in on a claim on my car stating that I hit a buck standing in the road. I really only clipped it as I was driving slowly around a blind corner, known for having deer just standing around. Now the person taking my information told me that since it is my fault, if I report it, my insurance will go up. Now I know that I'm already a liar, because no insurance agent would ever say such a thing, right? Nor a company ever admit to such cost-saving tactics? Again, right? Surely this was a mistake, but I'm sure it's a common practice nonetheless. And I get the motivation here. She was just trying to save me a rate increase, right? But now wait a minute. I explained that the deer was standing in the road. and I wanted to know how my mad driving skills, which averted my gaining a new set of horns for my front bonnet, was determined to be my fault. Now, considering that I have never been in a major car collision, and have had this insurance company for my entire life, small claims, yes, but no majors, I started to explain, prefacing my forthcoming statement with, I know it's not your fault, but why on earth would my insurance go up if anything happened that required my submitting a claim? Isn't this why I pay into it every month for years on end? Isn't this why I have insurance? So I can be unpunished for an at-fault or no-fault event? I slowly returned to the issue of my fault and wanted to know more about that clause. I repeated that I hit a deer and was wondering how it was my fault. The person stated, oh, I thought you said box. Now, in my mind, there was no difference since the deer didn't move any faster than a box would have, but I listened on. Then they stated that it wasn't my fault, and we proceeded to move forward with the claim. Now, I'm not just picking on their hearing skills. They were just doing what all of them probably should do. Warning, warning, your payments will go up if you use us for what we were originally intended to be used for. Boop, boop. I'm also not picking on the speed and quickness of my claim, as the entire process was painless, now that we separated the buck from the box. Although after this bit of commentary, I may be found in a box by a buck standing in the middle of the road. Now again, do they care? Do I have a priority in their business at all? Nope. I represent risk. You risk, them risk, gains or losses. Now, so because I know they are armed with all the niceties that will surely villainize what I am saying, I move to the next industry to embellish it with some kudos. By the way, a nice blanket or a responsibility blanket or empathetic or compassionate blanket are more often used to cover a disgusting bed than they are to represent the actions of some of these industries. IOW, in other words, doing nice things to cover up bad things, only works for kids who, as we know, are usually trying to hide something. Medicine. Treatment or cure or perpetuation of the same or new problem. Somebody has to be having these conversations at the medicine table, right? I know that certain people care for people, really care for other humans, in all of these industries, and that the motivation and intentions of their actions are to really help people. I don't believe we live in a hopeless world because, and only because, I believe in the God of hope. But man, if we could draw back the curtains for a minute, many of us would faint dead at what is going on right in front of us, let alone what happens behind the curtain. So the kudos goes to the medical industry because, and again, there is no conflict of interest here, right? For telling us the truth. Of course it is as they define it, but nonetheless the truth. And yes, we know that they are required by law to do so, but besides all that baloney, and wait, why would we have to have a law in place requiring an industry to be honest, or rather informative, as to the risks of taking their medicines for one of our maladies? Not sure, but no doubt they have a very well-rehearsed rhetorical response. By the way, they, them, those is us. But so why do we take pills that by all medical appearances cause us more harm than good? Well, if I'm a rep from the industry, my response might sound something like this. It is always up to the patient-doctor relationship to determine the best course of action that the patient chooses to take. We simply provide options. Some of the side effects, and please consider that I'm not a doctor or medical scientist. No doubt all in the industry could run circles around me, but in just listening to the side effects that a single pill may have on its swallowing gullet, it seems to me that becoming a heroin addict may have less risky side effects. Now, I know that some would use this comment to accuse me of being insensitive to addicts, but I'm just posing a question that much of the listening audience either asks themselves or others, or ignores. The lack of patience, no pun intended, to release some of the medicines without thorough testing have caused deaths that did not have to happen. They, the medical scientist staff, are not in the business to kill its client base. It's more profitable to bounce someone from medicine to medicine for years than to have them take the death risk pill. I know even when I reread it, it sounds insensitive. But so remember the garden? Patents Shelf space, money? I don't see the health of the patient dethroning any of these three gods of industry. Long-term sickness, long-term profits. End of story. And yes, the real person who is trying by all means to do the right thing exists. They are in that system, but don't be fooled by their presence. They might be in the van, but they're not usually driving it. Do you see it yet? You know, I could touch on politics, but that's a world that has done a good job at exposing its own corruption. It's like the 800-pound gorilla that has escaped the zoo that is seen walking down the street, beating his chest, shouting, "So what of it? Hey, there's abuse of power. So what of it? Hey, there's voter and election fraud concerns. So what of it? Boom, boom, boom. Hey, you can't do that, any of that. So what of it? Raise taxes again, and for what? So what of it? We shouldn't have gone to war for that reason. So what of it? The budget's out of control. So what of?" I would have finished that statement, but I ran out of money. Again, I try to refrain from the use of the words all the time, everyone, no one, everything, nothing, every time, never, always. You always do that. Blah, blah, blah. There are some good things going on, otherwise God does not and would not exist. So back to the core of this message, although somehow I hope that my opinion, which is well stated above, doesn't throw you off of where I'm going. Drinking, gambling, and having sex responsibly, irresponsibly. What in the green bullfrog messaging is this request from the various industries doing on our TVs and social media sites? Why, they would have to think that we are stupid or something. Are we? Is this a case of the schoolyard bully picking on the unsuspecting and usually nice guy? Before I launch out into the deep waters, let me be clear. This message is not about the schoolyard bully. Besides, we all know when a bully is confronted with the question, "Why did you do it?" they will say because he deserved it. But no one in any industry that depends in part on the loyalty of an addicted customer base would ever say that of their customer base, right? Anyway, and although I'm not nice to them, or rather critical of their behavior, I judge them not. As we know, the legal system oftentimes will cater to money or political arm twisting. Again, not picking on the human element, just saying. Oxymoron, oxymoron, oxymoron. They know it and they peddle it anyways. Why? Because if they can get you to take the bait, then they know that there is a high probability you will get hooked. The cigarette companies have been doing this for decades, along with others like them. I mean, Coke had Coke in it. Hello? Wasn't it Goliath that was the bully of the story and not David? Now, same as in the battle, we still fight bullies today, and their armor is as protective to them today as it was to Goliath. You must know that some people won't receive all that they are due until they die, right? So our responsibility is to point out the weapons that are used today so that you can make better decisions. We know this, and that is this. 1 John 5:19. We know that we are of God, and the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. Now we know even fishermen have been about this business for many a year. You try one lure type of bait to catch one type or species of fish. One failed marketing campaign after another until, whoops, look at that, we got a bite. Trial and error leads the fishermen to developing the right strategy for the fish that they are seeking. I know you're not a fish, and by God, you can make up your own mind about these big three bait industries. But do you think any of those on hooks said the same thing before being seduced by the bait? Hooks, hooks, hooks. And they are hoping you would say that, in fact, they bet on it. They want you to go to war over protecting your rights to be able to choose the hook of your desired choice. Tell me I'm wrong. I knew when I was attracted to their bait what was going on, but I chose to indulge because, well, I'm not like the other floundering fool fish who got hooked. Why, I can chew the bait off the hook without getting caught. I've got mad chew skills, dude. Or so I thought. So how many of us would not throw up if we were presented with a fun drinking commercial after a night of, what would the advertisers say? Drinking irresponsibly? The lure is represented by the other side of the bar. The entertainment, the comedy show, the football game, the frat party, the races, you get my drift. Now, don't you worry none. Some of them CEOs and presidents were drunk too, and even though they knew it is unhealthy for the majority of people, and that doing so creates or magnifies more sin in a man than man can possibly fathom without it, they look forward to the increased sales all the more. The only thing more important to them than the bar is the bar chart. The only thing that separates the two of you is how many zeros your paycheck lacks in comparison to theirs. I guess the obvious question is, what are the social impacts to a system of people who allow unchecked drinking? Not that we should make a law about it. Remember, I'm not trying to change the world or make it better. Not trying to point out the sins of the world. Solve the corrupted corruptibles. Nope. It's an unsolvable problem. In fact, it is on purpose that the entire system exists. And if you don't see it, it's because you don't want to. I remember when I was young, I would hear noises in the night, and so I would cover my head so I didn't have to see the noise. I know, right? Except I still cover my head even as an adult. Don't think that because you don't want to see the system as it is, that it is not on the downhill side of a short existence. Get another drink, it's harmless, and let's drive on. How many tax dollars go into a system that has to deal with over-drinking and the plethora of issues that arise from our, well, what do they call it? Irresponsibility. How many less jails or paddy wagons would be needed if drinking was manageable? Fires, murders, other addictions, babies to unknown mothers, abortions because, well, it was just a one-night stand, rapes, child abuses. Wow, Ken, enough. Now, if you're still with me, you might be inclined to say, it seems like you are attributing all societal woes on irresponsible drinking. Wait, I say, wait. There's more. Increased police force required to patrol party-happy streets, colleges, campuses, and, well, sometimes the whole town. The auto accidents, theft and thievery, muggings, and acts of bullying, not to mention the thousands of other side effects of a drinking society. In truth, the only thing good about it is that the profits are highest to the smallest of industry owners. Now, before the historians come crawling down my chimney, allow me to make some exceptions. Even though what I have brought up is absolutely the truth, beer was a food product at one time. In fact, the Puritans used to drink it as a food source. I believe I have not read of one of the Puritans who paddied down the road to hell for a carb or two. It is also nice to have a nightcap from time to time as long as there is no hook in it for you. Barbless? No, no hook at all. Don't you wonder what your guts would say right about the first irresponsible drink gully washers down your throat? Still, on all of this, alcohol's not the problem, and whether we had it or not is irrelevant in the large scheme of things. Saved, not saved. What is more important than having an answer to the question hidden in the act of being born again? My guess is that we spend enough money on the entire industry of alcohol, A to Z, the pleasurable to the homeless fish, that we could solve some of the planetary issues. But again, it's not the problem or the answer. So gambling. Yes, it's a play on gambling. I think the statistics show that over 90% of all who win the lottery are broker than when they won. No, I didn't say that they became a broker. Why, that would be a silly mad skill for someone who just won a boatload of money to have. And besides, the industry knows that the lottery is nothing more than a wealth transfer shell game. You win, the business gets their share, for providing the bait. The government gets their share, and because it's such a big share, of course, they are going to ignore the massive conflict of interest for even being involved in the gambling industry anyways, right? And well, wouldn't you? And besides, it creates business opportunities and jobs. How, you might ask? Well, now someone has got to take care of those who go broke after they were broke, but before they were rich. Someone has to repossess what material possessions they were borrowing. After all, they didn't know that without knowing how to handle wealth, they were only borrowing the stuff. Fortunately, they can fall back on a debt consolidation business that can help them to regain control of the falling airplane. Oh, but wait. Now they are addicted because, well, once you have tasted the chicken of the sea, you cannot go back to the old ways of doing things. So you believe that if you did it before, you can do it again. Now, if you were an athlete, I would offer kudos for this type of thinking, but not so much with the concept of having a stare down with the worm again. And who came up with the idea of calling tuna chicken? Unlike a lot of things, Tuna don't taste like chicken no matter how you char it. When my dad was able, we would go to Eagle Lake every year, at least once a year, and have a family reunion. I will always think my dad a hero because he had a peaceful fearlessness about him when everyone else stood aside a bug-resistant tent. Meat bees would come out by the hundreds when he was cleaning the fish. They would be all over his hands, the fish, the utensils, and in all that time I had never known him to have ever gotten bit by even one bee. He would clean away as the whole hive seemed to form summertime mittens on his hands. The exact opposite of this is what happens when people come into money through the lure of gambling. Now I know this has been an issue throughout all of time, and that money has always been drawn out of the bees of greed, but what I want to show you is the relationship changes that occur when someone in a family trips on $1 million. You win and the whole family is entitled to some of that cash. Just ask them. But of course you would think no other way about them had they been the one who tripped on the money bags first, right? It doesn't matter that they didn't consider you family. Right up to the moment they got their text of how their luck just changed forever through your windfall. Nope. You bring your poverty mindset to their front door and beg your way into their wallet. You say things like, "Don't you know what I've been through?" Or "Things are really tough now." Or "I could use a little help, and since you have so much." And there are other things like, "If it was me, I would give it to you." I am sure as the no's accumulate, so does the emotional energy of the excuses as to why you are entitled to some of their newfound wealth. Perhaps some might even break into a "I feel the Holy Ghost on this moment" sing-song scenario. You see, we are a family, and family takes care of its own, brother. Money reveals the hidden intent of the heart and the true authenticity of relationships. You see, the toxicity was always there. It just needed a bite of the Benjamin to show its existence. Let me tell you what I'm not trying to do. Withhold. I'm not trying to be non-offensive. I know that this message will offend because it is loaded with truth. If it was all lies, then why see to it at all? I'm not trying to expose those who make the bait, sell the bait, dig the ponds, collect the fish back, and fill the ponds. Nope, they expose themselves by their actions. What they rely on is for you to remain hopeful in their brand of bait, and that it won't have the same effect on you as it did on your kin. And even worse, that you would believe that it's no problem to partake, or that all of the excessive partaking is on you. But neither is a revelation of this issue. So look, for example, there are those who show you the horrible effects of smoking, and yet some unsuspecting soul grabs a hold of a cigarette and repeats the actions that may result in the same outcome. Now they know the cause and effect, yet they think it won't happen to them. It's like there's a switch in everybody that's called, "It won't happen to me." So we turn that thing off and then we repeat the same bad behavior that results in bad effects. Hello, the system is designed to do this. 1 John 5:19. We know that we are of God, and the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. Like it or not, the devil is always trolling for the next fish. I know that some don't care, and that's for another message. And yes, as with all of these points, there is a spirit behind all of it. Will it make a difference to reveal the source? Nope. People get involved with witchcraft and everything associated with that spirit, full well knowing the risks of shaking hands with the devil, who knows your every bait choice by heart. He has kin and kids, and they will act like dad because they are wholly compelled to respond to his desires and appetite. The bee doesn't fall far from the hive. Yep, I just made that up. The commercials say if we offer flingy family fun for all ages, bring the kids to Playland while you spend their future. No doubt you have heard about the wolf in sheep's clothing. Premarital sex. So my thought on including this issue is imaginary. So look, imagine if we were able to instantly get rid of alcohol and the A to Z effects, every form of gambling and the A to Z effects, even any and all things associated with the stock market. I know my 401k just lost 50% with that comment. And well, since we are all still imagining anything and everything associated with sex, outside of a healthy marriage between a man and a woman, all of it, Why, you and I would think that sin never entered the world of mankind through Adam. Trillions with a T is swirling around the A to Z's of all three of these industries annually. We could pay off the entire U.S. debt in less than a year. I say in less than a year because there would be a cost of transitioning the many who have been impacted by these industries. Dream, 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 dream. Nope, but it's not a dream, but a hope for the Christian that a world without these issues is coming. We are banking on it with our very service-friendly, faith-centered, enshrined in all of humanity with the love of Christ religion. But for now, you on the other side continue to believe that those leading the way in these industries would ever walk away from such lifestyles as to eradicate global poverty? Now I know you are probably thinking that I'm being a Mr. Negative Sour Meyer. But through and through, if you knew me, you would know that every last hope I have, is in God. There is nothing worth a partial exchange for any bit of my relationship with Him. I don't need to list all of the negative things associated with the sex industry. But wow, are we out of our minds to let it swell up into the monster that it is today? You can believe me that the problem is not solvable. Can you help? Yes, and should, however you can. Should you judge anyone struggling to remove the hook of perversion and lust? Well, just do what Jesus did. You will survive His judgment that way. From the modeling industry to the swimming suit editions of all kind of printed matter, to Facebook, to TikTok, Pinterest, Snapchat, YouTube, Netflix, you name it. Abortions, poor self-imaging, clothing, parents selling kids to the industry so that they can eat. Where does it end? And how much worse is it than just the mention of so few impacts thus far? Kids actually kill themselves because they don't feel that they measure up to a fake industry. That's an impact. Adults actually have sex with their own kids. That's an impact. Girls, after the industry considers that they have been all used up, whatever that means, are discarded to the streets to become homeless. That's an impact. Another unnecessary abortion. That's an impact. Kids being kidnapped and turned into addicts so they are hooked twice over. That's an impact. I could go on for weeks, but suffice to say, wow. In finishing, now what usually happens when the giants are kicked is that they behemothly begin to move about to find out who is tampering with their bed of lies, with such a weapon as the truth. I use behemoth as I envision them so full of the dollars we feed them that they are a bit overweight, so they slothfully move like a paradisian slug. Of course the devil doesn't want you to know that he not only has you hook, line, and sinker, but he has them hook, line, and sinker as well, with the exception that their hooks may be gold-plated. Now you ask why he would do that to his own kids. And yes, the best explanation is that he would eat his own kids, if it would, for a moment, satisfy his wretched appetite for souls. They think that they are getting away with something, and it has been this way throughout all of the history of mankind. The bully walks away with a grin on his insecure face, thinking he has won a great victory, taking down what he thinks is a nothing and an invaluable human being. But little do they know, little does he know, that unless he eventually becomes authentically born again, which can oftentimes come right out of our love response to him, when he has his shoe on your face, he is destined to meet my daddy, my jealous daddy, the one who created me to endure such things on this earth, that some, who may be watching my conduct, would peek into my house to see what goeth. So but now I remind you that although I have used these industries to demonstrate that we live on a rock that only promises what the rock can even produce, and so but glory be to God, we have a true and living rock that we rest on, and he shares with us his own kingdom which exceedingly surpasses this type and shadow we call earth. There is nothing wrong with having and maintaining systems to govern people. I state this knowing that all governments rest on him, for now and forever. Isaiah 9:6-7. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder. And his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice, from that time forward even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. But Ken, this message has so much, and while it seems all over the place, yep, sometimes I do that in my little attempt at drawing through characters, the picture that God shows me. It is not too easy to overwhelm our human minds to the affairs of God, right? And am I any different than you just because he gave me the gift of teaching? Nope. 1 Corinthians 4:13. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all the churches of the saints. He is not the author, which implies that there is an author. Confusion is a demonic strategy the devil uses all the time. It locks a person up and is responsible for many, premature, destructive, and damaging decisions made right from the very core of it. We all should do our best, with the operative word being the doing and not focusing on the besting, because besting will follow the doing, because faith without works is dead. And being the best dead Christian is not and should not be your focus. James 2:20. But do you want to know, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead? James 1:22-25. But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed in what he does. Titus 2:11-14. For the grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us that, denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present age. Look for the blessed hope and glorious appearing of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us, that he might redeem us from every lawless deed and purify for himself his own special people, zealous for good works. Bad industry can purify us if we understand that our role may not be to change it, but to allow it to have its purifying work. We are not here to save the planet. We are here to save the people living on this rock. A new world is coming, which will, in every way, surpass what this rock has shown us throughout history. I suspect without this one, we may never have really appreciated the one to come, if possible. So in finishing, I want you to see that this isn't about these industries doing whatever it takes to get you to voluntarily give them your greenbacks. Nope. It is simply about educating the spiritually ignorant that the devil is right under your noses, doing his will because you live and thrive in his world, hoping that it will somehow get better. Luke 4:6. And the devil said to him, All this authority I will give to you, and their glory, for this has been delivered to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. 1 John 5:19. We know that we are of God, and the whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. If you could only catch a break, he hears you whisper in the night as you throw the dice and bring to finality the wealth you once had. And to the one who considers himself the winner in the exchange, well, I guess this is why we believe in a just God. All accounts will be squared with him. And once the fog of the devil is removed from your eyes, you will see as you will only wish you did before you saw him. Now, if I left the message there, it would be right for you to consider me to be a bitter old man who is angry at institution. But besides the fact that I'm not angry at, well, anything, I am here to show the drinker, the gambler, the premarital sexer, the abortioner, the smoker, the drugger, the raper, the incester, the abuser, and those who abuse and use the addict, that there is hope, and he is the door which leads to it, regardless of what you have done. And don't worry if you have forgotten all that you have done. You have some family and friends who can remind you of each specific offense. After all, what is family for? No doubt some churchy folks have a record as well. Regardless, no matter the collateral damage, no matter what, It doesn't matter how you feel about it. Doesn't matter if you think you are unworthy. You are in fact right to think so. People get hurt when people sin, and all people sin. We only try to justify our position by comparing ourselves to the greater sinner. It's our personal assessment, of course, and thus we end up excusing ourselves from the supper table, unjustified, but satisfied that we have assessed the situation and found it better to sit at our own table. Like I have shared in other messages, in much greater depth, Satan's kids are goats, and God's kids are sheep. The goats thrive at the top of the mountain, while the sheep in the valley. And though the goats look down on the sheep, because we hear his voice, no matter what the goats do, he has us all in all. Don't hesitate to join the ranks of the rank, for we are not really rank at all. Let's light a candle. 2 Corinthians 2:14-17. Now thanks be to God who always leads us in triumph in Christ, and through us diffuses the fragrance of his knowledge in every place. Knowledge has an odor to it, and it is wonderful. Verse 15. For we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved. You see, you smell good to the one being saved. In my church purpose message, I chat about who should be invited to church, which is those who are saved and those who are being saved. You leave out the rest. The devil can find another place to meet other than in the house of God. Continuing with verse 15. And among those who are perishing. To the one we are the aroma of death, leading to death. You no longer have to wonder why your friend list has changed, or why your boss might be adversarial. You stink to them and remind them that all things die, and one day they will too. And to the other, the aroma leading to life. And who is sufficient for these things? Verse 17. For we are not as so many, peddling the word of God, but as of sincerity, but as from God. We speak in the sight of God in Christ. This whole message is to those being saved, to those on their way to salvation, that they would see and understand that there is a spiritual strategy to derail them and to keep them from the real daddy. Look at the things you are drawn to see if there is not a hook that will be set if you move to take the worm. Unnecessary debt. Not all debt is bad. Things that you know that you have had family members become addicted to. Generational curses. Exodus 25. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me. But Ken, I never hated God. I will be doing a message on stupid later. But for now, no one that I know, other than Jesus and John the Baptist, were born with the appetite to do God's will out of the womb. Look for the hook hidden in the bait. It has one purpose, which is to keep you from drawing near to the one that can save your soul. The one whom will use the culmination of hooks to end the devil once and for all. James 4:8. Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. We end this journey with Timothy as a word of caution. If you join the institutions for the same reason many of them exist today, then you also partake of their just rewards. But if you join them because you are called and assigned to them, do it without grumbling. And no, God may not want you to take up the cause to end their existence, only to draw out the hidden fishes laden with hook scars. 1 Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Well, that's it for today. Remember, it's not what you find wrong or disagree with regarding these messages, but what you can take away from it. Together we can do more to impact the kingdom than if we work alone. Let's flip the script and kill, steal, and destroy the works of the enemy, and create space for the light of lights to shine through into people's lives. Plant a seed and click on the like and subscribe button. Let's build this ministry together. Thanks, and see you next time in Deep Waters.